Portal 2 is a fucking long game, especially compared to the first game. As my playthrough of the first game was literally less than 2 hours, while Portal 2 absolutely shits on this by taking about 8 hours to go through. Valve is so lucky that they make amazingly good games, or else no one would play through that. But my god, aren't all 8 of those hours just so beautiful. Portal 2 is a game that is rich with not only story, but took all the shit the first game did and injected it with testosterone and steroids to make the most magnificent gameplay you can experience. But to Valve, that wasn't enough. Not only did they take what the first game did and make it astronomically better, they made this game absolutely bursting, gushing, fucking oozing with so much deep, interesting story with witty comedy and new memorable characters that makes this game like a drug. I get a legit contact high from playing this game. So let's talk about the story a little bit. Portal 2's story goes far deeper into the Half-Life world and its events. So we begin inside the relaxation chamber, and you were instructed to do some basic tasks, and after are instructed to go back to sleep because fuck you. But then you are abruptly awoken by a whiny voice and knocking.
Hello? Anyone in there? Hello?
And you get up and go to the door to be greeted by a personality sphere named Wheatley. Wheatley is pretty much a colossal dumbass and uses you to try to escape Aperture. And after trying to find an emergency switch, you accidentally manage to turn on GLaDOS somehow, who was the first game's antagonist. So she shits on Wheatley and forces you back into testing. You go through a bunch of new test chambers while she cleans the place up since you decimated her in the first game, and the place is now in a state of ruin. But Wheatley is back, and he gets violated by a bird, and you guys are back off onto trying to escape. So eventually you get to GLaDOS's room. Well, what I mean by get there is she traps you, and she wants to hate crime you to death. But little does she know, you and Wheatley sabotage her turrets and neurotoxin. So then Wheatley comes flying through the neurotoxin tube, smashing you out of your cage. You then initiate a core swap, and GLaDOS and Wheatley start arguing back and forth.
Think about this. You need to be a trained stalemate associate to press that button. You're unqualified.
Okay, don't listen to her, alright? It is true that you don't have the qualifications.
So you replace GLaDOS with Wheatley. So now Wheatley is in charge of the whole operation. But after you make him in charge, he starts to bring you out of the Institute. But then for the exact same reason I don't trust real British people, he decides that you should stick around for a little while. So he turns her into a potato battery, throws her at you, and you fall into a bottomless pit. But this bottomless pit turns out to actually not be that bottomless at all and actually leads to the old Aperture Science Center. We learn some more about the origins of Aperture and how they used to operate. And as we hit the bottom, we hear a voice who we later find out is Cave Johnson, the founder of Aperture Science. We hear this over an intercom system as he pre-recorded some messages before he passed away.
Gel. In layman's terms, that's a billion little gizmos that are going to travel into your bloodstream and pump experimental genes and RNA molecules and so forth into your tumors.
We learned that Aperture started off with testing involving athletes and the best of the best. But as they went downhill more and more, they just started grasping at straws as they started testing on homeless people, offering them money in return. We also figure out during this time that GLaDOS is actually Caroline, Cave Johnson's assistant. And in his dying wish, he said that if they found out a way to upload a human's consciousness into an AI, to do it to Caroline.
If I die before you people can pour me into a computer, I want Carolyn to run this place. Now she'll argue. She'll say she can't.
I think we can safely assume that I think it just might have worked. Just a little bit.
So, after this breakthrough, we continue on our journey to go find Wheatley!
And after a couple mishmash tests, we get treated to this beautiful line of dialogue.
No! This is the part where I kill you.
Well, after you escape, you run through the facility and end up making your way to King Dipshit himself. You kick his ass by tricking him into blowing himself up, and then corrupting him reverse fashion as you did to GLaDOS in the first game, using the new gels and whatnot. And he gets you with this little trap that he sets up, so you send his goofy ass to the moon. And GLaDOS saves you from being sucked out there too. And then the game ends with GLaDOS releasing you, because you were just such a pain in the ass. See, now that's cool and all, but how's the actual game play out? So, in the first video I talked about being able to solve the puzzles in many different ways, right? So yeah, this game just absolutely blows that out of the water by a long shot. I feel like during the playthrough I did just to gather the footage for this game, I solved almost every single puzzle the way the game did not entirely intend you to. I literally solved a puzzle by lining up 2 cubes, pixel perfect, and then hopping across the gap. I solved a puzzle using perfect placement in CSGO movement tech. If that doesn't scream non-linear gameplay, then I really do not know what does. I sat down for a comically long amount of time solving these chambers in just many different ways. See, they also added some new mechanics, starting with these light barrier slash bridge things, and the game uses these in a couple ways, and it's pretty genius. Whether it be using it as a bridge or using it as a shield to stop turrets from shooting you, or using them across large gaps of icky water. And then there's this new gloopy that they use for a good section of the game, whether they let you build speed or let you bounce or let you make portals on places that you usually can't. But then they also tie seamlessly into the story, as they are actually the reason Cave Johnson died. We also get to use these new extrusion funnels, which for me has some of the most annoying puzzles in the game. So out of spite, this is the only sentence I'm actually going to talk about them in. Fuck these things, I don't like them. So how does this game look visually? Portal 2 is a genuinely beautiful game. For a game being the age of the average Fortnite gamer, it is still visually and stylistically stunning. While in Portal 1 they focused on an industrial, clean, and sterile environment, Portal 2, taking place after Portal 1, is the Aperture Science Center in absolute shambles, and has been overtaken and overgrown with foliage. The once clean and refined tests now look like your Clash of Clans base after you haven't logged in for a while. And the ambient noises that you hear while playing the game makes every chamber feel so lonesome and a bit depressing. As you go through the chambers, every window you peer through, there is nothing and no one to be found. GLaDOS at the beginning of these chambers tells you about a deer that she saw, and then also tells you that she saw more humans, but then proceeds to tell you literally nothing about them, keeping you in the dark. So you know that there are people nearby, but you never actually get to see them. But the noises you hear while playing through are so eerie, and they just kind of make the whole game feel a bit unsettling. As if you played the first game, you know what happens at this place, and the new look just makes it even worse. As now, not only does it look like people have been killed there, you know people have been killed there. And then when you make your way to the old Aperture Science Center, you get this feeling even stronger, as you are now in a really old, decrepit part of the Science Center. And the aesthetic that they pull off here is just right on the dot. The old Science Center is supposed to be from the 1940s, and the way that they talk, the compression of the audio over the intercom, the dialect, and even the things like the social interactions, they just feel so spot on with this era. See, Valve loved DigiPen so much that they saw another game from their students called Tag, The Power of Paint. This is pretty much just a cool little tech demo, but what you do is you shoot paint out of your brand new Super Soaker you got for Christmas, and these paints have different properties like speed, jump, stick, but only speed and jump made it into Portal 2, as stick was thrown out, as I guess they didn't like the idea of Spider Shell, but instead they replaced it with Femboy Hooter Gel. All in all, this game's pretty swag. Go play it. If you got a friend or a significant other, maybe even siblings, probably not siblings though on the account that you might commit first-degree murder, but maybe play co-op with them. Portal 2 is not only just beautiful, but a borderline masterpiece, because Portal 2 is how you make a sequel to an already great game.